Cold billionaire CEO pretended to be blind to test everyone around him. The cleaning woman who saw through his disguise changed everything. The city never sleeps, but Michael Reed had forgotten what sleep felt like. From the 73rd floor of Reed Industries Tower, the world below looked like a circuit board. Tiny lights blinking in predictable patterns, people moving like data points in an algorithm he'd long ago mastered. He stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, a glass of scotch untouched in his hand, watching his reflection more than the view. 42 years old, $6 billion, zero reasons to smile. The intercom buzzed. "Mr. Reed, Miss Turner is here for dinner," his assistant announced, her voice careful, measured, the voice everyone used around him now. "Tell her I'll be down in 5, he replied, setting the glass on his mahogany desk without drinking. He'd stopped tasting things years ago. Food. Wine, success. It all went down the same. Hollow. Sophie Turner was beautiful in the way magazine covers demanded. Sharp cheekbones, designer everything, a smile that could launch products and close deals. She'd been his fiancée for 8 months, though Michael couldn't remember proposing. It had happened at a charity gala, champagne and cameras, and somehow by morning there was a ring and a date and publicists handling the narrative. "You look tired," Sophie said when he reached the private dining room, her kiss landing somewhere near his cheek, careful not to disturb her lipstick. "I'm fine." Ryan called. He wants to discuss the Singapore merger tomorrow. She was already scrolling through her phone, fork moving automatically from plate to mouth. "I told him you'd meet at 9. Ryan Blake, his best friend since Harvard, his business partner, his brother in everything but blood. Also the man Michael had seen leaving Sophie's apartment 3 nights ago at 2 a.m. He'd been returning from a late meeting, caught in traffic, when he saw Ryan's Tesla pull out from her building's underground garage. The same building where Sophie claimed she'd been too exhausted to see anyone that evening. Michael said nothing. He went home. He poured a drink. He stared at the ceiling until dawn. And he started paying attention. The merger documents Ryan pushed so aggressively. The way Sophie always knew Michael's schedule before he did. The private conversations that stopped when he entered rooms. The glances, the timing, the pattern. He'd built an empire reading patterns. This one was betrayal. But he needed proof. He needed to see it clearly, without doubt, without the possibility that paranoia was finally claiming him after years of suspicion and isolation. So when the car accident happened, Michael saw an opportunity. It was raining the night his Mercedes hydroplaned on the bridge. The impact was gentle compared to what it could have been. Airbags deploying, glass spiderwebbing, the world tilting sideways. He walked away with a concussion, bruised ribs, and a gash above his left eye that required 17 stitches. The doctor was concerned about his vision. "Any blurriness? Darkness? Double vision?" "Everything's fine," Michael lied, though it was. His eyes worked perfectly. But in that sterile hospital room, watching Sophie scroll through her phone while he bled, Ryan making business calls in the hallway, Michael made a decision. "Actually," he said slowly, "everything's blurry, like looking through fog." The doctor frowned. The tests began. MRIs, specialists, concerned voices discussing optic nerve damage, potential recovery, uncertain timelines. By the time Michael was discharged 2 weeks later, the story was set. Temporary blindness, possibly permanent. They'd know more in 6 months. He wore dark glasses now, Walked with a careful hesitance he'd practiced in his hospital room at night. Let people guide him. Let them think he couldn't see. And he watched everything. "Michael, darling, you need to be more careful." Sophie's voice carried that peculiar tone people used with invalids, too loud, too slow, as if blindness had also stolen his hearing and intelligence. They were in his study. He'd accidentally knocked over a pen cup, letting the pens scatter across his desk. "I'm fine," he said, reaching in the wrong direction deliberately. "Let me help." Her hands gathered the pens quickly, efficiently, the way someone completes an irritating chore. No warmth, no patience, just obligation. Through his dark glasses, Michael watched her eyes dart to his computer screen, then to the papers on his desk. Searching. Always searching. "You should rest," she said. "I'll handle the correspondence." "That's not necessary." "Michael," her hand on his shoulder gripped firm, "you need to delegate more. Let Ryan and me take care of things while you recover. That's what partners are for." Partners. The word tasted like rust. "Maybe you're right," he said softly, and felt her relax. "I'm always right, darling." She kissed the top of his head, a gesture that might have been affectionate if he hadn't seen her checking her phone over his shoulder. "I have a dinner meeting tonight. Will you be okay alone?" "I'll manage. Ryan will stop by tomorrow to go over the contracts." "Of course he will." She left in a cloud of perfume and clicking heels, and Michael sat in the darkness behind his glasses, perfectly still. Then he stood, walked to his desk with absolute precision, and pulled up the security footage from Sophie's building. He could see perfectly fine. He always had. The cleaning service came twice a week, a detail Michael had never noticed before, because invisible people don't demand attention. They arrived after hours, moving through his penthouse like ghosts, erasing evidence of life. He learned their schedule the way he'd learned to read market patterns. Tuesday and Friday, 9 p.m., a crew of 3. On the third Friday after his diagnosis, he was waiting. "Mr. Reed!" The supervisor nearly dropped her supplies when she found him sitting in the dark living room. "I'm so sorry, sir. We didn't know you'd be here. We can come back." "No." He held up a hand, careful to look slightly past her. "Please, continue. I won't be in your way." Should someone be here with you?" "I'm fine. I prefer the quiet." She hesitated, then nodded, gesturing to her crew. They moved around him carefully, speaking in whispers, treating him like expensive furniture that might break. All except one. "Vacuum's too loud," a woman's voice said from the doorway. Not to him, to her supervisor. "If he wants quiet, I'll do this room last." Michael turned his head toward the voice, keeping his expression neutral. "Emma, just..." the supervisor started. "It's fine," Michael interrupted. "She's right. I'd appreciate that." A pause. Then footsteps moving away to another room. He listened to her work for the next hour. She didn't whisper, didn't tiptoe. Moved with normal human rhythm, humming something under her breath, a melody he almost recognized. When she finally entered the living room, he was still sitting in the same chair. "You can't sit in the dark like this," she said matter-of-factly, not the careful voice everyone else used, just normal. "It's depressing." Michael almost smiled. Almost. "I can't see the difference," he said. "Yeah, but I can." "Mind if I open these curtains?" She didn't wait for permission. Light flooded the room, real light, golden hour sunlight that painted everything warm. "There," she said with satisfaction. "Better." Through his dark glasses, Michael studied her. Late 20s, maybe 30. Dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, worn jeans and a cleaning service polo. No makeup, no performance. Just a woman who apparently had opinions about depressing billionaire apartments. "What's your name?" he asked. "Emma. Emma Collins." She was wiping down his bookshelf now, her back to him. "And before you ask, no, I don't need you to remember it. Most clients don't. I'm not most clients." "No," she agreed, glancing over her shoulder. "Most clients aren't sitting alone in the dark pretending everything's fine." The words hit like a slap. Not cruel, just accurate. "I'm not pretending." "Sure you are." She moved to the next shelf. "Everyone does. Pretending is easier than admitting you're scared." "I'm not scared." "Then why are you sitting in the dark?" Michael had no answer for that. Emma worked in silence for several minutes, then said quietly, "My grandma went blind when I was 14. Diabetes. She spent the first month sitting in the dark just like this, thinking if she couldn't see, she might as well live in darkness. What changed?" I asked her what she was listening to. Emma smiled at the memory. She said nothing. So I started reading to her, every night. Books, magazines, grocery store flyers, didn't matter. After a while, she realized she'd been missing everything because she was too busy focusing on what she'd lost. She finished the shelf and picked up her supplies. "I'm not saying you're not going through something hard, Mr. Reed. I'm just saying maybe there's more to see than you think, even if you have to see it differently now." She moved toward the door. "Emma," she paused. "Thank you." "For what?" "For not whispering." She smiled, really smiled, not the careful corporate smile he'd seen 1,000 times. People whisper around broken things because they're afraid they'll break them more. But you're not broken, Mr. Reed. You're just learning how to see again. Then she was gone, leaving Michael sitting in the golden light, his dark glasses hiding eyes that worked perfectly fine. For the first time in months, he felt something shift inside his chest. Not love, not hope, just curiosity. Who was this woman who saw through disguises without even trying? Emma Collins didn't think about billionaires when she woke up at 5:30 a.m. She thought about her grandmother's medication schedule, about the electric bill that was 2 weeks overdue, about whether the bus would be late again, making her miss the first of her 3 jobs. The penthouse cleaning gig paid well, better than the diner where she waitressed lunches or the bookstore where she shelved returns on weekends. But it was still just money, just survival, just another day in a life built from borrowed time and careful budgeting. She didn't expect to think about Michael Reed at all, but on the bus ride to her morning shift, staring out at the grey morning dissolving into rain, she found herself wondering about the man who sat alone in the dark, pretending he couldn't see. Because Emma knew pretending when she saw it. She'd been pretending for 3 years. "Order up, Emma. Table 6 is getting cranky." The diner was the kind of place where coffee was always burnt, and the linoleum had given up trying to look clean. Emma moved through it like water, smooth, efficient, invisible. She refilled cups before they emptied, cleared plates before customers finished chewing, smiled at complaints like they were compliments. "Can I get a warm-up, sweetheart?" The man at the counter had kind eyes and paint-stained hands. A regular, Danny something, construction worker. "Coming right up." She poured, steam rising between them. "How's the job going?" You know, back's killing me, but the money's good." He grinned. "Your grandma doing okay?" "Good days and bad days." "Tell her Danny says hello." "I will." This was Emma's gift, remembering. Not just orders and preferences, but people. Their names, their stories, the small details that made them feel seen. It was also her curse, because when you remembered everyone, you noticed when they disappeared, when they stopped coming, when life swallowed them up without warning, like her ex-husband had done 2 years ago, leaving her with a grandmother to care for and a heart that had learned to function without hope. "Emma, phone!" Her manager waved a receiver. "Make it quick." It was the nursing service. Her grandmother had fallen trying to reach her pills. Nothing broken, but they were concerned. Could Emma come early today? "I'll be there in 20 minutes. She hung up, untied her apron, and approached her manager with the expression of someone who'd had this conversation before. "I need to leave." "Emma, we're short-staffed." "I know, I'm sorry. I'll pick up the Saturday double shift." "You already work Saturdays. Then I'll work Sunday too." He sighed but nodded. He always did. Emma was reliable in the way that made managers forgive almost anything. She clocked out, grabbed her bag, and ran for the bus in the rain. Her grandmother's apartment was on the 4th floor of a building where the elevator worked about half the time. Today wasn't a working day. Emma took the stairs 2 at a time, her heartbeat loud in her ears. "Grandma? In here, sweetheart." She was in the bathroom, sitting on the closed toilet lid, looking small and tired. The nurse had cleaned up the spilled pills, but Emma could see the bruise forming on her grandmother's shin. I'm fine, Grandma Rose said immediately. "Just clumsy." "You're not clumsy." Emma knelt, examining the bruise gently. "You're trying to do too much alone." "What else am I supposed to do? You work yourself to death taking care of me, Emma. I won't be more of a burden." "You're not a burden. Don't lie to an old woman." But she smiled, cupping Emma's face with hands that had raised her since she was 9, after her parents died. "You should be out there living, not stuck here with me." "This is living." "No, baby, this is surviving." "There's a difference." Emma helped her grandmother to bed, made tea, organized the pill bottles by color and time of day, then sat on the edge of the mattress, holding her hand. "I met someone interesting yesterday," Emma said. "Oh?" Her grandmother's eyes lit up with the mischief that blindness couldn't dim. "Handsome?" "I didn't say that." "You didn't have to. I can hear it in your voice." Emma laughed despite herself. "He's a client at the penthouse building." "The sad one?" "What?" "You told me about him 2 weeks ago, the billionaire who sits in the dark. You said he sounded sad." Had she said that? Emma replayed the conversation, realized her grandmother was right. She had mentioned him, had wondered aloud why someone with everything would choose darkness. "I talked to him yesterday," Emma continued. "Really talked. Not just, 'Yes, sir,' 'No, sir' stuff. And I think..." Emma paused, searching for words. "I think he's pretending to be something he's not. Or maybe not be something he is. I can't figure it out yet. People always pretend, sweetheart. The question is why." Her grandmother squeezed her hand. "But be careful with sad billionaires. They're sad for a reason." "I'm always careful." "No, you're always kind. That's different." By the time Emma reached Reed Industries Tower that evening for the cleaning shift, she'd worked 11 hours, eaten a granola bar for lunch, and thought about Michael Reed more times than was reasonable. She told herself it was curiosity, professional interest. The same way she wondered about all her clients, what their lives were like, what made them happy, what kept them up at night. But when she stepped off the elevator into his penthouse and found him standing by the windows, silhouetted against the city lights, Something in her chest tightened. He looked lonely, powerfully, devastatingly lonely. "Mr. Reed," she said softly, "I didn't know you'd be here again." He turned toward her voice, his dark glasses reflecting the city behind him. "I could say the same. Don't you have Fridays off? Covering for someone. You do that a lot, don't you?" "Do what?" "Cover for people. Pick up extra shifts. Take care of things." Emma set down her supplies, studying him. "How would you know that?" "I listen." He smiled slightly. "It's amazing what you hear when people think you're not paying attention." "Are you paying attention?" "Always." There was something in his voice, a weight, an awareness, that made Emma pause. For just a moment, she had the strangest feeling he was looking at her. Really looking, through those dark glasses, seeing more than he should. But that was impossible. "I'll start in the kitchen," she said. "Emma." She stopped. "The other night you said your grandmother went blind. How did she cope?" The question was careful, tentative, like he was testing whether vulnerability would break him. Emma turned back. She cried for a month. Then she got angry for another month. Then she woke up one day and decided that if she couldn't see the world, she'd feel it instead. Feel it? She started baking again. Said she could measure flour by weight, feel when dough was ready, know when cookies were done by smell. Emma smiled at the memory. She said sight was just one way to understand things, that sometimes you see more clearly when you stop trying to look. Michael was quiet for a long moment. "She sounds wise." "She is. Stubborn, infuriating, but wise. You take care of her." It wasn't a question, but Emma answered anyway. "She took care of me first, after my parents died. Now it's my turn." "That's why you work 3 jobs." Emma froze. "How did you—" "Your supervisor mentioned it last week, said you were the hardest working person she'd ever met." He tilted his head. "Why do you do it? Work yourself to exhaustion?" "Because people I love depend on me." "And what about you? Who takes care of you?" The question hit Emma like cold water. No one had asked her that in years. Not since her ex-husband had packed his bags and left a note on the kitchen counter. "I can't do this anymore." "You care about everyone except us." "I take care of myself," she said finally. "Do you?" "Mr. Reed, Michael." "Michael," she corrected, something shifting in the air between them. "Why do you ask questions you already know the answers to?" He smiled then, a real smile, small but genuine, because sometimes people need to hear their own truth spoken out loud. Emma didn't know what to say to that, so she did what she always did when emotions got too close. She worked. She was cleaning the study when she heard the voices. Michael's door was open. He always left it open now when she was there, as if he liked the company even from another room. But tonight, there were others. "Absolutely not, Michael. This merger is worth 40 million. You can't back out now." That was Ryan Blake. Emma had seen him in photos around the penthouse, tall, polished, the kind of handsome that knew it. "I'm not backing out. I'm reviewing the terms." "You already reviewed them." 3 times. "Then I'll review them a 4th time." "Michael, buddy, you're not thinking clearly." Ryan's voice softened in that way people's voices did when they were pretending to care. "You've been through trauma. You're not seeing things right. Don't." Michael's voice was ice. "Don't use my condition as a weapon." "I'm trying to help you." "Are you?" Silence. thick and dangerous. Then Ryan's voice again, colder now. Sophie's worried about you. We both are. Maybe you should let us handle the business side while you focus on recovering. How convenient for you both. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. I'm tired. We'll discuss this tomorrow. Footsteps, the door closing. Then silence. Emma stood frozen in the study, dust cloth in hand, heart pounding. She shouldn't have listened. It wasn't her business. She was the cleaning woman, invisible, irrelevant. But something about that conversation made her skin crawl. She found Michael still in his office, sitting behind his desk, hands clasped, jaw tight. "You okay?" she asked before she could stop herself. He looked toward her, or at least turned his head in her direction. "You heard that? I didn't mean to. It's fine." He rubbed his temples. "You want to know the hardest part about being blind?" Emma waited. Everyone thinks they can take advantage of you. Because if you can't see, you can't know. You can't understand. You're helpless. His laugh was bitter. Funny how tragedy brings out people's true nature. Or maybe, Emma said quietly, it just makes it harder to ignore what was always there. Michael went very still. She shouldn't have said that. It was too personal, too presumptuous. She was crossing a line that employees didn't cross with billionaires, but Emma had spent too many years being invisible, being careful, being small. And something about this man sitting in his fortress of glass and steel, surrounded by people who pretended to care while sharpening their knives, made her want to break her own rules. "I should finish cleaning," she said. "Emma." "Yes?" "Thank you." "For what?" "For being honest. Everyone else tiptoes around me like I'm made of glass. You just say things. Is that bad?" "No." He smiled slightly. "It's refreshing." Emma nodded, then turned to leave. "Emma?" he called again. "Yes?" "Would you tell me if you saw something wrong, even if it wasn't your place to say?" The question hung between them, heavy with meaning. "Yes," Emma said simply. "I would." "Good." His voice was soft. "I was hoping you'd say that." Later that night, as Emma rode the bus home through the rain-soaked streets, she replayed the conversation in her mind. There was something happening in that penthouse, something dark beneath the surface. Michael Reed wasn't just a blind billionaire learning to cope. He was a man testing the people around him, and for some reason, Emma had the feeling she'd just passed the first test. Michael Reed had spent 20 years building walls, glass towers, steel fortresses, bank accounts so thick they could stop bullets. But on a Tuesday morning, following Emma Collins through a neighborhood his GPS labeled high-risk area, he realized none of it mattered, because here, money was just paper. He'd told James, his driver, to stay 3 cars back, told him to be invisible. Michael sat in the back seat wearing a baseball cap pulled low, dark glasses, and clothes he'd borrowed from his building's maintenance staff. He looked like anyone. For the first time in 20 years, he was no one, and he was following his cleaning woman. "This is insane," he thought. "You're a billionaire stalking an employee." But he couldn't stop. Ever since that conversation in his study, the way Emma had looked at him when she said she'd tell him if something was wrong, Michael needed to know who she really was. Not the woman who cleaned his penthouse, the woman who saw him when everyone else was blind. Emma's bus stopped in front of a community center that had seen better decades. The paint was peeling, the windows were barred. A handmade banner read, "St. Mary's Community Outreach, all welcome." She stepped off the bus carrying 2 grocery bags, walking with purpose toward the entrance. Michael waited 30 seconds, then followed. Inside, the building smelled like industrial cleaner and hope, that particular scent of places held together by volunteers and prayer. Folding tables lined one wall, already being set up for something. Children's artwork covered the bulletin boards. Emma was in the kitchen. "Morning, sunshine." An elderly woman with silver hair and a volunteer badge hugged her. "You bring the donations?" "Pasta, rice, canned vegetables," Emma said, unpacking the bags. "It's not much, but it's perfect. We'll make it stretch." "How many today?" 43 families signed up, probably 50 by noon. Emma nodded, already tying an apron. "Let me help pack the boxes." Michael watched from the doorway as Emma transformed. At his penthouse, she was efficient, professional, careful. Here she was alive. She laughed with the volunteers, knew everyone's names, moved through the space like she owned it, not with arrogance but with belonging. "Can I help you, son?" Michael turned. An older man with kind eyes and a priest's collar stood beside him. "I'm just looking around," Michael said carefully. "First time here?" "Yes." "Well, you're welcome. We're setting up for the food distribution. Happens every Tuesday. You need assistance or you here to volunteer?" Michael hesitated. "Volunteer." The priest's smile widened. "Wonderful. Come on, I'll get you started." 20 minutes later, Michael was packing boxes of groceries beside Emma. She hadn't noticed him yet, too focused on her work, talking to a young mother about formula prices, listening to an elderly man complain about his landlord, her hands never stopping. "Rice here, pasta there," the volunteer supervisor instructed Michael. "Canned goods in the middle, 1 box per family." "Got it." He worked in silence, watching Emma out of the corner of his eye. "You're new." He looked up. Emma was staring at him, head tilted, trying to place his face. His heart stopped. "Yeah," he said, dropping his voice slightly. "First day." She studied him for another moment, then smiled. "Welcome. I'm Emma." "John," he lied. "Nice to meet you, John." She went back to packing, but added, "Fair warning, Father Miguel works volunteers like rented mules. You'll earn your karma today." Michael almost laughed. "I'll manage." The families started arriving at 11. They came in quietly, with the particular dignity of people who needed help but hated asking for it. Single mothers, elderly couples, working men whose paychecks didn't stretch far enough, immigrants, veterans, the invisible people Michael's city had forgotten. Emma greeted every single one by name. "Mrs. Chen, how's your daughter doing in school?" "Marcus, did your back feel better after that treatment?" "Sarah, oh my God, look how big the baby's gotten." She didn't just hand out boxes, she handed out humanity. And Michael watched, something cracking open in his chest. This was what money couldn't buy. Connection, being known, being seen. "Hey, John, can you help me with something?" Emma waved him over. A little girl was crying quietly in the corner, maybe 6 years old, clutching a worn stuffed rabbit. "That's Lily," Emma said softly. "Her mum's getting the food box. Lily's shy." "What's wrong with her?" "Nothing's wrong with her. She's just scared." Emma knelt beside the girl. "Hey, Lily Bear, remember me?" The girl nodded, tears still streaming. "What's going on, sweetheart?" "I lost Mr. Hoppy's ear." She held up the stuffed rabbit, which was indeed missing one ear. "Mama says we can't buy a new one." Emma's expression didn't change, but Michael saw something flicker in her eyes, a pain that understood what it meant to lose something small that felt enormous. "Can I see him?" Emma asked gently. Lily handed over the rabbit. Emma examined it carefully, then smiled. "You know what? I think I can fix this. My grandma taught me how to sew. Can I take Mr. Hoppy home tonight and bring him back next week?" "You promise?" "I promise. Cross my heart." The little girl's face transformed. "Okay. And Lily, you're so brave for taking care of Mr. Hoppy. Not everyone knows how to love something even when it's broken." The girl hugged Emma, then ran back to her mother. Michael stood frozen. Not everyone knows how to love something even when it's broken. The words echoed in his head. Emma stood, brushing off her knees. "Kids, right? The smallest things matter most to them." "You're going to fix it," Michael said. It wasn't a question. "Of course. I promised." "You know how to sew?" "I know how to keep promises." She looked at him directly. "That's more important." They worked until 2 o'clock, when the last family left and the volunteers began cleaning up. Michael's back ached. His hands were cramped. He'd lifted 50 boxes, swept 3 floors, and washed enough dishes to stock a restaurant. He'd also never felt more awake. "You did good today, John." Father Miguel clapped him on the shoulder. "Come back next week if you can." "I will." Emma was untying her apron, grabbing her bag. Michael realized she'd been here for 3 hours, squeezed between her morning diner shift and her afternoon bookstore shift. She never stopped moving, never stopped giving. "Emma, wait," he called. She turned. "Why do you do this?" he asked. "You already work 3 jobs. You take care of your grandmother. Why add this too?" Emma looked at him for a long moment, as if deciding whether this stranger named John deserved an honest answer. "Because," she said finally, "when my parents died, we had nothing. My grandmother was working 2 jobs, barely keeping us afloat. And places like this, they saved us. Not with money, with presence, with someone remembering our names." She glanced back at the community center. These people aren't looking for charity. They're looking for proof that they still matter, that someone sees them. And if I can be that person for even one of them. She shrugged. Then the exhaustion's worth it. Michael couldn't speak. He'd spent his entire life building things. Companies, buildings, wealth. Emma spent hers building people. "You're a good person," he said quietly. Emma laughed. "I'm a tired person who's about to be late for her next shift. But thanks, John." She waved and headed for the bus stop. Michael stood in the doorway of St. Mary's Community Outreach, watching her go, and for the first time in 20 years, he felt small, not in a bad way, in a way that made him realize he'd been living in the wrong direction. That night, back in his penthouse, Michael sat in the dark without his glasses. He could see perfectly the city lights, the walls, the expensive furniture, the emptiness. He picked up his phone and called his accountant. "I need you to set up an anonymous donation," he said, "to St. Mary's Community Outreach Center. $500,000. Immediately." "Mr. Reed, that's—" "Do it." He hung up. Then he sat in the silence, thinking about a little girl's stuffed rabbit and a woman who'd promised to fix it. And Michael realized something terrifying. He wasn't just observing Emma anymore. He was learning from her, learning what it meant to see what mattered, even when you were pretending to be blind. Michael Reed had always believed money could fix anything, until he tried to fix Emma Collins. It started with good intentions. The morning after visiting St. Mary's, Michael called his assistant. I need detailed reports on all our corporate charity initiatives, and I want a list of community centers in the lower district that need funding. Sir, we already have established partnerships. I want new ones. Focus on food distribution programs. Of course, Mr. Reed. He told himself it was just business, strategic philanthropy. But when he anonymously donated another $200,000 to St. Mary's, this time specifically for equipment upgrades, he knew he was lying. He was doing it for her. The following Tuesday, Emma arrived at the community center to find chaos. New industrial refrigerators, commercial-grade ovens, a delivery truck unloading boxes of brand new supplies. Father Miguel was standing in the middle of it all, holding a letter, looking stunned. Emma, can you believe this? An anonymous donor. They've given us enough to operate for 2 years. Emma stared at the equipment, something cold settling in her stomach. Did they say who? No. Just a lawyer's letter saying someone wanted to help. Isn't it wonderful? The other volunteers were celebrating, but Emma felt something was wrong. She couldn't explain it. Just a feeling, like when someone gives you exactly what you need before you ask for it. Like when someone's watching even when you think you're alone. At the penthouse that Friday, Emma worked in silence. Michael noticed immediately. She wasn't humming, wasn't making conversation, just cleaning with mechanical efficiency, her mind clearly elsewhere. Something wrong? He asked carefully. No. You seem quiet. Just tired. But when she moved to leave early, barely saying goodbye, Michael made his second mistake. He followed her again. This time, Emma didn't go to the community center. She went to a small apartment building, climbed to the 4th floor, and knocked on a specific door. A young woman answered, early 20s, holding a sleeping baby. Emma! Thank God. I didn't know who else to call. What happened? The landlord's threatening eviction. Says I'm 2 months behind. But I paid last month, I swear I did. I have the receipt. Emma stepped inside. Show me. Michael watched from the stairwell, staying in the shadows. For 20 minutes, Emma sat with this woman, going through papers, making phone calls, her voice firm but kind. Finally, she pulled out her wallet. How much do you need? Emma, no, I can't. How much? $800. But you've already helped so much. I'll cover it. Emma, you have a baby. I have money saved. Let me help. Michael's chest tightened. He'd seen Emma's paycheck records when he'd done a background check on all his staff. She barely made enough to cover her grandmother's medical expenses. This $800 was probably everything she had. The young woman was crying now. I'll pay you back, I swear. Don't worry about it, just take care of that beautiful baby. After Emma left, Michael waited until she was gone, then knocked on the door himself. The young woman answered, confused. Yes? I'm here about your rent, Michael said. I'd like to pay it for the next year. I'm sorry, what? Your rent. I'll cover it. You won't owe anything. She stared at him like he'd spoken a foreign language. Who are you? Just someone who wants to help. I don't understand. You don't need to. He handed her an envelope with a cashier's check. This is enough for 12 months. Use Emma's money for something else. Your baby, yourself, whatever you need. But why would you? Because someone I know cares about you, and that makes you worth caring about. He left before she could ask more questions. Michael felt good, powerful, like he'd solved a problem, like he'd done something meaningful. He realized his mistake 3 days later. Emma didn't show up for her Friday shift. She didn't show up Saturday either. On Sunday, Michael's phone rang. It was his cleaning service supervisor. "Mr. Reed, I wanted to inform you that Emma Collins has resigned, effective immediately." His blood went cold. "What? Why?" "She didn't give a specific reason. Just said she couldn't continue." Michael hung up and called his driver. "Take me to Emma's address, now." The building was worse than he'd imagined. Crumbling brick, broken windows, the kind of place where hope came to die. He climbed 4 flights of stairs and knocked on her door. Silence. "Emma, I know you're in there." More silence. "Please, I need to talk to you." Finally, the door opened. Emma looked exhausted. Her eyes were red. And when she saw him, something in her expression broke. "You can see," she said flatly. It wasn't a question. Michael's stomach dropped. "Emma, you can see. You've always been able to see." Her voice was shaking. "The community center, the anonymous donations, Rachel's rent money. That was you." "I was trying to help." "No." She stepped back. "You were trying to fix things. With money. Like everything's just a problem that needs solving. That's not—" "Did you follow me, Michael? Did you spy on me to figure out what I needed so you could swoop in and play hero?" He couldn't lie. "Yes?" She laughed, but it was broken. "Why? Why would you do that?" "Because I wanted to understand you. I wanted to help." "You wanted to control me." The words exploded out of her. "Just like you control everything else. You tested everyone around you by pretending to be blind, but you know what? You're more blind than anyone. You can't see that some things shouldn't be fixed with money." "Emma, please." "That money I gave Rachel, that was my choice, my sacrifice. It meant something because it cost me something. But you just wrote a check and erased the meaning of it." Tears were streaming down her face now. "You made me feel like my kindness wasn't enough. Like I wasn't enough. Because I can't write checks for $500,000. All I have is presence and time and care. And apparently that's worthless compared to what you can do." "That's not true," Michael said desperately. "Emma, your kindness is the only real thing I've seen in years. Then why did you have to turn it into a transaction?" She wiped her eyes roughly. "You can't buy kindness, Michael. You can't purchase meaning. You have to live it. And you can't live it if you're standing outside looking in, pretending to be blind while secretly controlling everything." The words hit him like physical blows. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I know you are, but sorry doesn't fix this." She stepped back toward her door. "You need to figure out who you actually are, Michael. Are you the man who sits in the dark testing everyone? The man who throws money at problems? Or are you someone who can actually be present, be real, be vulnerable?" "I don't know," he admitted. "Then figure it out. Because I can't be around someone who sees me as a project to improve or a problem to solve. I'm just a person, a tired, imperfect person doing the best I can. And that has to be enough." She closed the door. Michael stood in the hallway, staring at the peeling paint, his heart hammering. And then his phone rang. Ryan. "Michael, we need to talk. Now. It's about the merger. Sophie and I, we need your signature today, or the deal falls apart." "I'm busy." "This can't wait. Meet me at the office in an hour or you'll lose everything." Michael hung up. He looked at Emma's closed door one more time, then turned and walked down the stairs. By the time he reached his car, his phone was ringing again. his accountant, his lawyer, his assistant, all of them with the same message: crisis. Come now. Everything's at risk. Michael sat in the back seat, hands shaking. For the first time in his life, he didn't know what to do. He'd built an empire on knowing, on seeing, on controlling. But Emma was right. He'd been blind all along. And now, just as he was starting to actually see, everything was falling apart. The boardroom was cold. Not temperature cold, though the air conditioning hummed at a sterile 68 degrees. Cold in the way places become when ambition replaces oxygen. Michael sat at the head of the table, his dark glasses removed for the first time in weeks. Everyone could see his eyes now. Ryan and Sophie sat across from him, dressed like they'd already won. Confident, composed, ready to deliver the final blow. "Michael," Ryan began, his voice smooth as expensive whiskey, "we've been patient. But the Singapore merger closes in 48 hours. We need your signature." "Or what?" Michael asked quietly. "Or we lose the deal. $40 million. Gone." Sophie leaned forward, her engagement ring catching the light. A ring Michael had paid for from a proposal he barely remembered making. "Darling, we know you've been struggling," she said, her tone dripping with false concern. "The accident, the vision problems, the stress. Maybe it's time to let Ryan and me handle things while you recover." "Handle things," Michael repeated. "We've already prepared the power of attorney documents," Ryan said, sliding papers across the table. "Just temporary, until you're feeling better." Michael looked at the documents. 6 months ago, he would have seen the trap immediately. The legal language that turned temporary into permanent. The clauses that would strip him of control. The signatures that would hand his empire to the two people he'd trusted most. But 6 months ago, he'd been blind in a different way. "Tell me something," Michael said, his voice eerily calm. "How long have you two been sleeping together?" The room went silent. Sophie's face went pale. Ryan's jaw tightened. "Michael," Ryan started. "How long?" Michael's voice was steel now. "A year, 2 years, since before the engagement." "This is inappropriate," Sophie began. 8 months, Michael said. "I know because I've been watching. That's what happens when you pretend to be blind. People forget you can see." He stood, walking to the window. "I watched you leave her apartment at 2 a.m., Ryan. Multiple times. I watched you two exchange glances when you thought I wasn't looking. I saw the text messages you forgot to hide, the whispered conversations that stopped when I entered rooms." He turned back to face them. "I saw everything. And I kept watching because I needed to know if there was anyone left in my life who gave a damn about me instead of my money." Ryan's composure finally cracked. "You manipulative bastard. You've been lying to us for months. I learned from the best." Michael's smile was cold. "But here's the difference between us, Ryan. I lied to find the truth. You lied to steal everything I built. You can't prove anything. I can prove all of it. I have recordings, emails, security footage. Enough to bury you both legally and professionally." Michael leaned forward. "But I'm not going to do that," Sophie blinked. "What?" "I'm not going to destroy you. I'm going to let you destroy yourselves." He pushed the documents back across the table. "The merger. It's a scam, a shell company Ryan created to funnel money out of my accounts. I've known for 6 weeks. My lawyers have been investigating." Ryan's face went white. "The Singapore partners don't exist. The contracts are fake." And every email you sent, every document you forged, it's all being handed to the FBI tomorrow morning. Michael's voice was ice. So, congratulations. You played yourselves. Sophie stood, her hands shaking. Michael, please, we can explain. Get out. His voice was quiet but absolute. Both of you. Before I change my mind about letting the law handle this instead of my own methods. They left without another word. And Michael stood alone in the boardroom watching the city below, feeling nothing. Not victory, not satisfaction, just emptiness. Because he'd won. He'd protected his empire. He'd exposed the traitors. But Emma's words echoed in his head. You need to figure out who you actually are. And standing in this cold room, surrounded by everything he'd built, Michael realized he had no idea. The call came at 3 a.m. Michael was still awake, staring at his ceiling, when his phone buzzed. Unknown number. Hello? Mr. Reed? A woman's voice, unfamiliar. This is Mercy General Hospital. We have your contact information listed as an emergency contact for Rose Collins. His heart stopped. Emma's grandmother? Yes, she's been admitted. Severe complications from her diabetes. We've been trying to reach Emma, but I'll be there in 10 minutes. He didn't think, just moved. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and fear. Michael found Rose's room on the 4th floor. An elderly woman lay in the bed looking small and fragile, oxygen tubes in her nose. But no Emma. Where's her granddaughter? Michael asked the nurse. We can't reach her, she's not answering her phone. Michael's stomach twisted. Emma worked 3 jobs. She could be anywhere. I'll find her, he said. He called the diner first. Is Emma Collins working today? She called in sick, first time in 3 years. The bookstore, same story, which meant she was home and not answering her phone. Michael drove himself this time. No driver, no buffer. Just him and the night and the growing fear that something was very wrong. He took the stairs 2 at a time, pounded on Emma's door. Emma, open up! Nothing. Emma, it's Michael. Your grandmother's in the hospital. The door opened. Emma stood there in pajamas, her face blotchy from crying, her eyes hollow. I know, she whispered. You know? Then why aren't you there? I can't. Her voice broke. I can't watch her die, Michael. I can't sit there and be strong and positive and hopeful when I know. She collapsed. Michael caught her before she hit the ground, holding her as sobs racked her body. She's all I have, Emma choked out. Everyone leaves, my parents, my husband, everyone, and now her. And I'm so tired of being strong. I'm so tired of losing people. I can't do it again. Michael held her, this woman who'd held everyone else together, finally breaking in his arms. And for the first time in his life, he didn't try to fix it, didn't offer solutions, didn't throw money at the problem. He just stayed. You don't have to be strong right now, he said quietly. You don't have to do anything. Just breathe. I can't lose her. I know. I'm not ready. I know. They sat on the floor of her apartment for 20 minutes, Michael just holding her, not speaking, not promising it would be okay, just being present. Finally, Emma's breathing steadied. Will you come with me? She whispered. Yes. I'm scared. I know. I'll be there anyway. Rose was awake when they arrived. Her blind eyes couldn't see, but her face turned toward Emma's voice immediately. Baby girl. I'm here, Grandma. Emma took her hand and Michael saw her transform, all that strength flooding back, that infinite capacity to be what others needed. But this time she wasn't alone. Michael stood behind her, one hand on her shoulder. Silent. Present. "I was dreaming about your grandfather," Rose said softly. "He was young again, handsome. He said it's not time yet, but soon." "Don't talk like that. Sweetheart, I'm 87. I'm allowed to talk however I want." She smiled weakly. "Is someone there with you?" Emma glanced back at Michael. "Yes." "The sad billionaire?" Despite everything, Emma almost laughed. "Yes." "Is he still sad?" Michael stepped forward. "I'm working on it, ma'am." Rose's hand reached out, and Michael took it without hesitation. "You take care of my girl," Rose said firmly. "She spends her whole life taking care of everyone else. Someone needs to take care of her." "I will," Michael said. "I promise." "Good. Because if you hurt her, I'll haunt you. Blind ghost is the worst kind." This time Emma did laugh, and Michael felt something in his chest unlock. They sat with Rose through the night, sometimes talking, sometimes silent. Just being there as her breathing steadied, as the crisis passed, as morning light crept through the windows. And somewhere around dawn, Michael realized something. This was what mattered. Not empires, not victories, not control. Just this. Being present for someone who needed you. Not fixing, not solving, just staying. Outside the hospital, as the sun rose over the city, Emma turned to Michael. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For what?" "For not trying to fix it. For just being there." Michael looked at her, really looked, without pretense or performance. "I'm sorry," he said, "for everything, for lying, for spying, for trying to control things with money. You were right. I've been blind my whole life, not physically, emotionally." Emma was quiet for a long moment. "Why did you pretend?" she asked finally. "Why fake being blind?" "Because I needed to know who I could trust, who was real." He laughed bitterly. "Turns out the only real person was the one I never thought to test. Me? You. You saw me from the beginning. Not my money, not my power, just me." Emma studied his face. "And who are you, Michael, without the money and power?" "I don't know yet," he admitted. "But I want to find out. And I was hoping—" He hesitated. "I was hoping you might help me figure it out." "Why would I do that?" "Because you're good at seeing people. The real them." He smiled slightly. "And because I think you might be the only person who's ever really seen me." Emma looked at him for a long moment, then shook her head. "I need time, Michael, to think, to process. You lied to me, I know. And you hurt me, even if you didn't mean to." "I know. But," she sighed, "but you also showed up. When I needed someone. You showed up and you stayed." "I'll always show up," Michael said quietly. "If you let me." Emma didn't answer, but she didn't walk away either. And for Michael Reed, that was enough. For now. 3 months later, Michael Reed stood in front of a building he'd once condemned. The old warehouse in Emma's neighborhood had been slated for demolition. Another property he'd purchased. Another number on a spreadsheet. Another piece of real estate to flip for profit. Now it was something else entirely. The sign above the door read, "Rose's Place Community Resource Center." Michael ran his hand over the brass plaque beside the entrance. "For those who see with their hearts when the world has stopped looking." The doors opened, Father Miguel stepped out, grinning. "Mr. Reed, we weren't expecting you until the ribbon-cutting ceremony. I wanted to see it one more time before everyone arrives." Michael looked up at the building. Restored brick, new windows, solar panels on the roof. "Make sure everything's ready." "Ready? It's perfect. Come see." Inside, the transformation was complete. What had been a decaying warehouse was now a bright, open space. One wing housed a food distribution center, 3 times larger than St. Mary's old operation. Another wing had a medical clinic, offering free basic healthcare. The third wing was dedicated to job training and education programs. But Michael's favorite part was the library. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, comfortable chairs, natural light streaming through skylights. A quiet space where people could read, learn, exist without judgment or cost. "Emma's going to cry when she sees this," Father Miguel said softly. "That's the idea." "You know she still doesn't know you're behind all of it." Michael shook his head. "The paperwork says it's from an anonymous foundation. I want to keep it that way." "Why?" "Most donors want their names on everything." "Because this isn't about me. It's about creating something that matters, something that'll be here long after I'm gone." Michael paused. "And because Emma taught me that the best kind of giving is the kind nobody sees." Father Miguel smiled. "You've changed, son." "I'm trying to." The past 3 months had been a study in dismantling everything Michael thought he knew about himself. He'd stepped down as CEO of Reed Industries, installing a management team he actually trusted. He still sat on the board, still made strategic decisions, but the day-to-day obsession was gone. Ryan and Sophie were facing federal charges. The investigation had uncovered not just their scheme against Michael, but years of embezzlement and fraud. Michael felt no satisfaction in their downfall, just a quiet sadness for time wasted on people who'd never really known him. He'd sold the penthouse. Too much glass, too much height, too much distance from the actual world. Now he lived in a brownstone in Emma's neighborhood, not to be close to her, though that was a bonus, but because this was where real life happened, where people knew their neighbors, where kids played in the streets, where you could hear laughter and arguments and music through the walls, where you couldn't hide from being human. He'd started volunteering at St. Mary's every Tuesday, still using the name John, still wearing regular clothes, still just another pair of hands packing boxes and listening to stories. Most people there had no idea who he really was, and he preferred it that way. Emma arrived at the ribbon-cutting ceremony with her grandmother. Rose was in a wheelchair now. The hospital crisis had taken its toll, but her spirit was intact. She wore a purple dress and a hat with flowers, looking like she was attending a royal wedding. "This is really something," Rose said as they approached. "Who did you say funded this?" "Some anonymous foundation," Emma replied, reading from the invitation. "The paperwork just says, 'A friend of the community.'" Michael watched from the crowd, staying back, letting Emma have this moment. She looked beautiful, tired, but beautiful. Still working her 3 jobs, still taking care of everyone, still carrying the world on her shoulders. But she was smiling. Father Miguel took the microphone. "Thank you all for coming. Today we celebrate not just a building but a promise that no one in this community will be invisible, that everyone matters, that kindness isn't a luxury, it's a necessity." The crowd applauded. This center exists because someone believed that the most powerful investment isn't in stocks or real estate. It's in people. And while our benefactor wishes to remain anonymous, I want to read something they wrote. He unfolded a letter, and Michael's chest tightened. He'd written it at 3 a.m., trying to find words for everything Emma had taught him. Father Miguel began to read. I spent my life building empires from glass and steel, believing that height equaled worth, that money equaled meaning, that control equaled security. Then I met people who taught me differently, people who measured wealth in smiles and time and presence, who understood that the richest heart is the one that gives when it has nothing left to give. This center is not charity, it's gratitude, for everyone who showed me what truly matters, for the woman who saw past my walls, for the community that welcomed a stranger, for the reminder that we're only as wealthy as our capacity to care. May this place be a lighthouse for the lost, a home for the forgotten, and a reminder that the greatest fortune is being seen, being known, being human. We rise by lifting others, and I'm finally learning how to rise. The crowd was silent. Emma was crying. Rose reached up and took her granddaughter's hand. Whoever wrote that, she said softly, understands you, baby girl. After the ceremony, Michael finally approached them. Emma saw him coming, and her expression was complicated. Surprise, wariness, something else he couldn't quite read. Michael, she said carefully. Emma, Mrs. Collins. He nodded respectfully to Rose. The sad billionaire himself, Rose grinned. I survived, in case you were wondering. I'm very glad to hear it, Mum. Are you still sad? Michael considered the question honestly. Less sad, more confused, but in a better way. Good. Confusion means you're growing. Certainty is where people stop learning. Emma was watching him closely. What are you doing here? Same reason as everyone else. Celebrating something good in the neighborhood. That's all? That's all. She didn't believe him. He could see it in her eyes. But she didn't press. How have you been? He asked. Busy, tired, the usual. She paused. I heard you stepped down as CEO. News travels fast. Small community, people talk. She studied his face. Why'd you do it? Because I realized I was building the wrong things, chasing the wrong definitions of success. He smiled slightly. Someone once told me that wealth means nothing if your heart is poor. Took me a while, but I finally listened. Emma's expression softened. Just a fraction, but enough. I also heard, she said carefully, that you've been volunteering at St. Mary's as John. Michael's heart skipped. You knew? I figured it out after the second week. You're not as good at disguises as you think. Why didn't you say anything? Because you were trying, really trying, not to fix things or control things, just to show up. She met his eyes. That mattered. They stood in silence for a moment, the celebration continuing around them. Emma, Michael said quietly, I know I hurt you. I know I lied and manipulated and tried to solve you like a problem. And I know saying sorry isn't enough. No, it's not. But I'm not the same person I was 3 months ago. I'm trying to be better, to be real, to be someone worthy of the second chance you gave me by just existing in my life. Emma looked at him for a long moment. I see you trying, she said finally, and that counts for something. Does it count for enough? I don't know yet. She glanced at her grandmother, then back at him. But maybe we can figure it out. Slowly. No games, no tests, just honest? Honest, Michael agreed. I can do honest. Can you? I'm learning. It's harder than lying, but it feels better. Emma almost smiled. That's growth. Rose cleared her throat loudly. Are you two going to stand here having a moment, or are you going to wheel an old woman inside to see this fancy new building? They both laughed, and the tension broke. Michael pushed Rose's wheelchair while Emma walked beside them, and for the first time in months, something felt right. Not perfect, not resolved, but right. Later, as the sun set and the crowd dispersed, Michael found Emma sitting alone on the steps of Rose's place. "You okay?" he asked. "Just thinking." She looked up at the building. "This place is going to change lives. Whoever funded it understood what people really need." Michael sat beside her, careful to leave space between them. "Can I tell you something?" he said. "Always. I used to think success meant never needing anyone, being untouchable, invulnerable." He looked at his hands. "Now I think success means being brave enough to need people, to ask for help, to admit when you're wrong." "That's terrifying," Emma said softly. "It is. But it's also the only way to actually live." They sat in comfortable silence as the city lights began to flicker on. "Michael," Emma said. "Yeah?" "Thank you. For showing up that night at the hospital, for not trying to fix everything, for just being there. Thank you for teaching me how." Emma stood, brushing off her jeans. "I should get Grandma home. Can I walk you?" She hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, you can." And as they walked through the neighborhood together, a billionaire and a cleaning woman, both learning how to see clearly for the first time, Michael realized something. He'd spent his whole life trying to build a legacy, but the only legacy that mattered was this: being someone who showed up, being someone who stayed, being someone who loved without conditions. That was wealth, that was purpose, that was everything. 1 year later, the rain came softly that morning, the kind that whispers instead of shouts. Michael stood by the window of his brownstone, watching water trace patterns down the glass, and smiled at the memory of another rainy night, the one that had changed everything. His phone buzzed, a text from Emma. "Running late. Grandma insists on bringing her famous cookies. See you at 10. He typed back, "Take your time. I'm not going anywhere." And he meant it. The community center was buzzing with its usual Tuesday morning energy. Michael, still known as John to most of the volunteers, was setting up tables when Father Miguel found him. "Big day," the priest said, with a knowing smile. "Is it that obvious? You've been checking your watch every 30 seconds. Either you're nervous or you've suddenly developed an obsession with punctuality." Michael laughed. "Maybe both." Today marked the 1-year anniversary of Rose's place. But more importantly, it marked something else. Something Michael had been planning for months. Something that terrified and thrilled him in equal measure. Emma arrived with her grandmother right on time despite the text. Rose's health had stabilized over the past year. She was stronger now, more mobile, her laugh louder than ever. The medical clinic at Rose's place had made all the difference. Regular checkups, proper medication management, care that didn't bankrupt them. "John!" Rose called out when she spotted him. "Come give an old woman a hug." He obliged, and she whispered in his ear, "You're still using that ridiculous fake name?" "Old habits," he whispered back. "Stubborn man." But she was smiling. Emma approached, looking tired but radiant. She'd finally quit one of her 3 jobs, the diner, after Rose's place had hired her as their community outreach coordinator. It wasn't much money, but it was meaningful work, and for the first time in years, Emma had time to breathe. "Hey," she said softly. "Hey yourself." Michael wanted to kiss her, but they were still taking things slowly. Very slowly. Rebuilding trust wasn't a sprint, it was a marathon, but they were running it together. "Ready for today?" she asked. "More than you know." The anniversary celebration was exactly what the community needed. Food, music, children playing, neighbors reconnecting. Michael moved through the crowd, helping where needed, listening to stories, being present. This was his life now, not boardrooms and power plays, not manipulation and control, just this, just showing up, just caring. "Can I have everyone's attention?" Father Miguel called from the small stage. "We have some special announcements today." The crowd gathered. "First, I'm thrilled to share that Rose's Place has served over 15,000 families this year. 15,000. Applause erupted. "We've provided medical care to 3,000 individuals, job training to 800, and my personal favorite, we've become the neighborhood's unofficial coffee and gossip headquarters." Laughter rippled through the crowd, but none of this would exist without the vision of our anonymous benefactor, and today that person has asked to say a few words, for the first time, publicly. Michael's heart hammered as he stepped onto the stage. Emma's eyes went wide. She hadn't known he was speaking, hadn't known he was revealing himself. "Hi," Michael said into the microphone, his voice uncertain. "Most of you know me as John. Some of you know me as the guy who can't fold donation boxes properly." More laughter. "But my real name is Michael Reed, and I'm the person who funded this place." The crowd went silent. Emma's hand flew to her mouth. "I'm not telling you this because I want recognition or praise. I'm telling you because I owe you all the truth. And because someone very important taught me that honesty is the only foundation worth building on." He found Emma in the crowd, held her gaze. "A year ago, I was a different person. I was successful by every external measure. Money, power, influence. But I was bankrupt in the ways that actually matter. I was lonely, distrustful, blind to what made life worth living." His voice grew stronger. "Then I met someone who saw through every wall I'd built. Someone who showed me that real wealth isn't what you accumulate, it's what you give. Not with money, but with presence, with kindness, with the courage to show up even when it's hard." He paused, gathering his words. "This past year, I've learned more from this community than any business school ever taught me. I've learned that being vulnerable isn't weakness, it's strength. That asking for help isn't failure, it's wisdom. That the measure of a life isn't what you build for yourself, but what you build for others." The crowd was completely still, hanging on every word. "Rose's Place isn't my legacy, it's ours. Every person who volunteers here, who receives help here, who shows up and cares, you're the real investment. You're what makes this place sacred." He stepped down from the stage, walking directly to Emma. "I lied to a lot of people in my life," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear, but speaking only to her. "I pretended to be blind to test who was real, but the blindness was never physical, it was emotional. I couldn't see what mattered until you showed me." Tears streamed down Emma's face. "I'm not perfect, I'm still learning, still making mistakes. But I promise you this." He took her hand. "I will show up, every day, not to fix you or change you or solve you like a problem, but to be with you, to see you, to choose you every single day with clear eyes and an honest heart." "Michael," her voice broke. I love you, Emma Collins. Not because you saved me, though you did. Not because you're perfect, which you're not. He smiled through his own tears. But because you're real, because you see people, because you taught me that the only life worth living is one where you're brave enough to actually feel it. The crowd was crying now. Rose was openly sobbing, Father Miguel distributing tissues. Emma looked at Michael for a long moment, this man who'd been so lost and was now so found. You really mean it? She whispered. No more games? No more tests? No more games, just me. Imperfect, trying, showing up. That's all I ever wanted. She kissed him then, in front of everyone, and the community center erupted in applause and cheers. When they finally pulled apart, Emma was laughing and crying simultaneously. You're still paying me to clean your house, though, she said. I'm not dating a client for free. Deal. Rose wheeled herself over. About damn time, you two. I'm 87. I can't wait forever for great-grandbabies. Grandma. What? I'm old. I can say whatever I want. Later, as the celebration wound down and the sun began to set, Michael and Emma sat on the same steps where they'd talked a year ago. Can I ask you something? Emma said. Anything. That night you pretended to be blind. Were you ever actually scared? That you wouldn't find anyone real? Michael thought about it. Terrified. I thought maybe everyone in my life was just using me. That without my money I was nothing. And now? Now I know the opposite is true. With money I was nothing. Just a hollow shell playing games. Without it, or at least without making it the center of everything, I finally found out who I actually am. And who's that? Someone who's still figuring it out, but doing it with you makes it feel possible. Emma leaned her head on his shoulder. You know what's funny? You pretended to be blind to see who was real, but you were the one who couldn't see. I know. And now? Now I see everything, the rain, the light, you, this. He gestured at the community center, the neighborhood, the life they were building together. All of it. Clearly. Finally. They sat in comfortable silence as the city lights began to glow. Michael? Emma said softly. Yeah? I love you too. His heart, which had been frozen for so long, felt like it might burst. Say it again, he whispered. I love you. Not your money, not your power. Just you, the real you. And Michael Reed, billionaire, former CEO, recovering control freak, did something he'd never done in his entire life. He cried tears of pure, uncomplicated joy. 2 years later, the brownstone was filled with laughter. Sunday dinners had become tradition, Michael cooking badly, Emma fixing his mistakes, lovingly, Rose telling stories that got more exaggerated with each retelling. And then he tried to give me a check for my medical bills, Rose was saying to their gathered friends. Can you imagine? I told him, young man, you can't buy your way into this family, you have to earn it. And did he earn it? Someone asked. He's getting there, Rose said with a wink. Michael caught Emma's eye across the room. She was glowing, one hand resting on her stomach, 7 months pregnant, their daughter kicking up storms that made Emma laugh every time. They'd gotten married 6 months ago in the community center, surrounded by people who knew them as John and Emma, Michael and Emma, just two people who'd found each other against impossible odds. No media, no publicity, no performance, just love. Michael walked over, wrapped his arms around her from behind, rested his hand over hers on her belly. You okay? He whispered. Perfect. Tired. Exhausted. Happy. Both. That's allowed. Their daughter kicked, and they both laughed. She's going to be stubborn like you, Michael said. And kind like you, Emma replied. I'm not. You are. You just spent 30 years hiding it. She turned in his arms, looked up at him. But I always saw it, even when you were pretending to be blind. I was never pretending with you. I know. Later that night, after everyone had gone home and Rose was asleep in the guest room, Michael and Emma stood by their bedroom window, watching rain trace patterns down the glass. Full circle. What are you thinking about? Emma asked. About how everything changed because of one rainy night, one car accident, one decision to stop hiding. Regret any of it? Not a second. Even the painful parts, especially the painful parts. He pulled her close. They taught me how to see, Emma smiled. You know what the best part is? What? You thought pretending to be blind would show you who really loved you, but the truth is, you had to learn to see yourself first, to love yourself, to believe you were worth loving without the money and power. Michael was quiet, letting the truth of it settle. You're right, he said finally. I was testing everyone else, but the real test was always for me. And I finally passed. They stood together in the darkness, rain falling outside, a baby growing between them, a life built on honesty and presence, and the courage to be vulnerable. Michael thought about the man he used to be, cold, controlled, certain. That man was gone. In his place was someone uncertain, imperfect, trying, someone who showed up, someone who stayed, someone who loved. And that, Michael realized, was the only wealth that ever mattered. He thought it was just one last test, but it became the beginning of everything. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, because sometimes the richest hearts are the ones that finally learn to give, and the clearest vision comes when we stop pretending to be blind. Thank you for being here. Thank you for seeing. Thank you for caring.